Hey everyone, John from Persanix here, and today I'd like to show you a Persanix exclusive hardware accessory, the snap mount for the Arduino Uno. The snap mount for the Arduino Uno is, well, it's a mount for the Arduino Uno that allows you to snap the Arduino Uno into the top. The name is pretty on point. A lot of the other mounts that you'll see, you have to use hardware, screws, something of that nature to get the Arduino Uno attached to your project. And in some cases, like the mount that the Arduino Uno actually comes with nowadays, you have to mount it through the Arduino Uno itself, which means the mount and the Arduino have to be attached to your project together. Whereas the snap mount, you could actually attach this to your project and then put the Arduino Uno in afterwards. So you could leave the mount into your project. I personally find this useful if you're working with a larger project that maybe you're prototyping on a breadboard somewhere, and you just want to take the Arduino Uno out, reprogram, retest, and then just plug it back into your project, reattach all the wires and such. The snap mount would be a good candidate for that use case. There's a couple other things I like about the snap mount, so let's take a moment to talk about the design. The first aspect of the design to discuss is the base plate itself. The base plate is made out of 3mm thick polycarbonate. A lot of the other mounts that you'll see on the market are made out of acrylic. Polycarbonate is significantly more durable than acrylic. However, there is one drawback. Polycarbonate is excessively prone to light scratching. So any type of tool that you have grazing the snap mount will most likely scratch it. They do make scratch-resistant polycarbonate. However, it is orders of magnitude more expensive than your standard issue polycarbonate, which would increase the cost of the snap mount by a few dollars. We figured you're probably going to beat the heck out of these anyway, so what's a couple of light scratches compared to the cost savings that you get? Next, you'll notice unboxing the snap mount, there are 4 rubber feet already attached to the mounting holes. These rubber feet are good for prototyping your Arduino on a flat surface, such as a desktop. It'll prevent your Arduino from sliding around too much, and these pins on the bottom of the Arduino are a little sharp. They might scratch whatever surface that you're prototyping on, so I personally like this configuration for prototyping, which we'll talk about in a second. If you wanted to mount this snap mount to your project, you would take the rubber feet off and insert an M3 size screw into these mounting holes. We do offer an optional mounting hardware kit that comes with M3 by 12mm stainless steel screws with a number 2 drive, probably the most common screwdriver that you'll have, and shoulder washers. Shoulder washers help mitigate some of the cracking that you would get on the edges should you crank down on these mounting holes a little bit too hard, which I don't recommend that you do, but the shoulder washers will mitigate some of that damage. Last but not least are the snap blocks themselves, which are made out of nylon and are semi-permanent. That's a key thing that we'll talk about again in a minute when we talk about use cases. However, once you snap your Arduino in, which I'm not doing now, there is a technique for removing the Arduino from the snap mount without hurting your fingers or worse, potentially, damaging your Arduino Uno. Now that we've talked about the design of the snap mount, let's go over what I consider to be the 2 most common use cases for the snap mount. The first use case for the snap mount is prototyping. So this would be a desktop type situation where you're still programming the Arduino, maybe you have a breadboarded project, something along those lines. In which case, you probably want to leave the rubber feet in place, and what you want to do is place the Arduino onto the mount, give a little push. You should not hear any clicks or feel any tactile bumps, and that alone is enough to keep the Arduino mated to the snap mount. Now, of course, if you were to drop this, the Arduino would probably eject itself, but for prototyping, where you're constantly taking the Arduino off and onto the mount, this is what I would recommend. The second use case is when it's project time, in which case you're probably going to want to take the rubber feet out, put your mounting hardware in, mount the base plate to your actual project, and then snap the Arduino in. Again, just as a reminder, this is semi-permanent. So what you want to do to snap the Arduino in is apply even pressure on all 4 corners and go one side and then the other side. Very strong tactile bump. Now this is going to be hard to get off unless you know the technique to unmount the Arduino. Now this, again, semi-permanent. This is going to prevent the Arduino from ejecting, even if your project falls out of the sky or from a high place, something along those lines. Also good for vibration. The Arduino is snapped in to the mount. To take the Arduino back off, which is not something I would imagine you'd want to do frequently, the technique for doing so is to go one corner at a time. It's still going to be tough, and be careful because you still might hurt your fingers on the bottom of the Arduino. What I've done in the past is wedge a screwdriver handle into the corners to do it that way. You're going to scratch them out as we talked about before, but hey, this is the way to do it. So it's still going to be tough. So go one side at a time, one corner at a time. Be careful of those pins. They've gotten me a couple of times, and just like that. If you were to try to take the Arduino off just as one piece without going corner by corner, you're probably going to hurt yourself and also not be able to take the Arduino from the mount. So there you go. Those are the two use cases that I imagine for the snap mount. And that about does it for the snap mount for the Arduino Uno. It's available now at Persanix.com along with the optional mounting hardware. Again, my name is John from Persanix, and stay tuned for more. Until next time.